Biz Buzz on Marlow FM 97.5.
And it's good afternoon and welcome to Biz Buzz on this first show post-Drexit. And you're joining me in the studio is Malcolm Parr and myself, Wisdom de Costa, as we look at the world of business. Malcolm, how's your week been?
It's fine. It's not only post-Brexit, which we'll cover later in the programme.
I just said Drexit, post-Dermot Fitzpatrick.
Without Dermot Fitzpatrick, exactly. That wonderful voice he has, but it still will be heard on Radio Marlow FM because he does the mid-morning programme from time to time. So lots of things going on. What was the highlight of your week apart from bees?
It was absolutely bees, yes. We've got our new hives in. We've had them for a couple of weeks now and very much enjoying looking after the bees, and they're fascinating creatures. Absolutely phenomenal work ethic.
I think their work ethic is actually a sort of cross-section of everything in life. It covers conservatism, it covers the development, growth, happiness. Apparently they have 20 dialects as well. Did you know that, for different parts of the country?
I can't even speak one.
Well, you're speaking one now, but...
not a bee dialect.
It's sort of Windsor cum Marlow dialect in your case. But anyway, they do actually adapt to their environment, and the sound, apparently, you've got to tell me all about this later on, but the sound, the volume and everything else indicates how happy they are.
Oh, I know that. I know that when they're buzzing and they get a little bit angry, you can tell.
Yeah, well, the highlight of my week was actually on Tuesday with the swan upping coming through town and all the fine costumes that the people wear and the boats all dressed up.
And how was the numbers this year?
Numbers, great. I think the swan numbers have gone up.
Really? Okay.
I found one on my doorstep very recently, I think I mentioned.
Yeah.
And I coaxed it round back to the river. It took me about an hour. Because if they just stay sitting on concrete, they give up, as I think anyone would, really.
Well, the worrying trend I heard is that actually, although it's great to hear that in Marlow that we're treating our swans well, because I hear that nationally, though, the swan numbers are down, and they are obviously kind of work out why they are down.
I'd have to check with Dave Barber. He's our local Queen's representative in looking after the swans, and he has a little marina at Cookham. I used to go on holiday with him, so I know about his interest in swans. It's a preservation, education, all sorts of aspects coming into the ceremony. It's well worth seeing next year if you've missed it this year.
Excellent. So did you like the song I played to start off the show?
Absolutely, yes.
Staying Alive. Do you get the connection?
Yes, I think we're going to have a few connections to bees on this programme.
I think we might do, yeah. So it was the Bee Gees and Staying Alive from 1977, and of course the film Night Fever. Or Saturday Night Fever, I should say. And, of course, today's spotlight is going to be on bees. But aside of and we're looking at bees, I understand that Einstein apparently once said that if all the bees died out, we'd have 4 years left to live as a human race. So we're going to find out what is that about and how does that affect the world of economics? How do big businesses or bee businesses actually work? And can you, Malcolm, make money out of bees?
Well, I'm hoping you'll tell me that in the future. If you buy the drinks, I know your bee business is going well.
And what else have we got for the show later on this afternoon? What sort of points have you got?
Some quite interesting things, really. First of all, we've got the real reaction to Brexit. I know we're all pretty bored of the subject, but things are actually moving on quite fast, and you should be aware of what the Bank of England and others are actually doing. And then we're going to have a look at the likely budget and how it's going to manage, whether you're investing in property or not.
Is this the budget we weren't going to have or are going to have?
It's the one we aren't going to have, budget. But it'll be in autumn.
Okay.
And we've got to find a rather lot of money. And one or two other things, like, for example, if you had £1,000 invested in, let's say, the co-op, and they're not the worst, and it was invested in terms of getting interest, you would earn approximately a penny a day.
That's scary
interest.
Thoughts.
It's scary. We need to look at what money we've got tied up, and it's part of our business profile.
Looking forward to that already. So I'm going to have a little bit of a summary tune. It's my favourite tune of the moment. Absolutely my favourite. It's Kungs and Cooking on 3 Burners. There we go. That was Kungs and Cooking on Gas. One of my favourite songs of the summer. Absolutely summary tune. Well, I'm happy to say that we're joined now by Margaret Ginman. Margaret is a successful businesswoman with a background in national newspaper and journalism. She joined the Bee Farmers Association as a General Secretary 4 years ago to increase its regional sales and national presence. Now, since the organisation, since then, Margaret's also been involved with launching a world-class apprenticeship scheme to enable members to pass on their skills to future generations of bee farmers. She's also a member of the EU Working Party on Honey, DEFRA's Bee Health Advisory Forum and National Pollinator Implementation Group and Scotland's Honeybee Health Strategy Group. She works closely with the Bee Farmers Association's Pollinator Group, and she's also owns a small business herself. Margaret, welcome to Biz Buzz. Whoa, there we go. Some great music there from Frank Sinatra and Fly Me to the Moon. I'm going to hand over now to Malcolm. Malcolm, tell me what's happening at the moment in what sort of stories you've got for us.
Well, there's an awful lot. It's a shame to get away from bees while we sort out the technical problems. But basically, Buckinghamshire is in a good place, actually, for Brexit to some degree. In that Buckinghamshire gets less subsidy from Europe than any other county in the UK. We have a new Brexit coinage for you. It's called Brexitosis. It's a malady brought on by the psychological trauma of the recent vote to leave Europe. And its symptoms include proclamations of imminent recession, flight of global investors, and a collapse of the pound. Yet, if you listen to the Bank of England this morning, they're saying, well, actually, it's nowhere near as severe as we might think. We can't see it happening. So let's look. We're going to be looking a little bit later on at some of the positive things that are happening, as well as some of the concerns still in the heart of business. So I'm going to go back here to Wisdom and see if he's got his bee expert on the line. Margaret.
It looks as if we are now working and live. Margaret, did you hear the wonderful introduction we gave to you?
I did indeed, Wisdom. Thank you very much.
Yeah, as you just said, I'm a beekeeper to me, and I found out all this other stuff about you. You're so modest.
Oh.
So, I heard that Albert Einstein once said, if the bee disappeared on the surface of the globe, then man would only have 4 years left to live. What's that about, Margaret?
Well, now that's a funny one to start with, Wisdom, because whether Einstein said that or not, the jury's out on this one. But certainly bees are very important to us on the planet. They account for £128 billion in trade for honey, plus billions in pollination throughout the world. 75% of our crops that we eat depend on pollination of insects of one sort or another.
Now, that equates to about £170 billion globally, I understand, and around £20 billion in terms of the economic impact in just Europe alone.
That's right. That's right.
Can I come in there, Margaret? This is Malcolm here. We're working together to understand more about the bee story. I understand it would cost UK farmers £1.8 billion a year to pollinate their crops if we didn't have bees. Is that sort of the scale of the situation?
We are hugely important in the pollination for sustainable food production throughout the UK. That is definitely true, yes.
Right.
And of course, they're wider than that. There is the monetary value for maintaining a fragile food supply, the contributions to the ecosystem, and of course, seeds and fruits and berries are eaten by mammals and small mammals. So they're very, very...
Absolutely. And of course, providing man with one of his greatest pleasures, which is honey. Ripping off his toast in the morning.
And porridge, too.
And porridge, of course.
My favourite.
Yes, I can certainly advocate that.
So what's your angle then, specifically on bees? I know we'll come back and talk about your world class. It's been defined as a world-class apprenticeship scheme later on. But where do you come in on bees?
Where do I come in? I am the General Secretary of the Bee Farmers Association, which represents most of the people who sell their honey commercially throughout the UK or provide pollination services to farmers and growers. And indeed, I was at a fruit show yesterday where it was said how important we are to the production of good quality fruit in this country.
And in terms of your campaigning work, what sort of work have you done in relation to bees? And
well, what we like to see at the Bee Farmers Association is bringing young people into bee farming careers, and to that end, as you said in your introduction, we've set up an apprenticeship scheme to get young bee farmers interested in it. I mean, a couple of years ago, the average age of a bee farmer in this country was 66, and therefore we really needed to see new blood and young faces into bee farming. And when you think about it, in the year 1900, there were 1 million beehives in the United Kingdom. Today, we're well under 250,000.
Wow, that's a massive reduction.
Why is that, Margaret?
There are various reasons for that, and that's debated hotly in both the bee community and the farming community. But we at the Bee Farmers Association would certainly like to see an increase in the number of bee farmers, an increase in the number of beehives, and an increase in the sustainability of honey production in this country. In this country, we only produce about 6,000 tonnes of honey, whereas we consume about 6 times that amount.
So we've got a long way to...
Look at other European countries, they produce far more honey for their own consumption at home.
So you're saying that we can move a long way towards having an equalised balance of trade there with that in relation to honey?
In honey, I think we should. And if you look at other European countries, they do. In Spain, for instance, they have 30,000 beekeepers and they produce 30,000 tonnes, actually, of honey per year. And they satisfy 90% of their domestic consumption.
Okay.
I mean, we're satisfying something like 14% of our consumption.
Now, look, we've said that bees are very, very important to the world economy and possibly even put Brexit into the shade. So we're going to come back to how people can get involved with beekeeping a little later on in the show. But our studios are situated here in Cookham and the Prime Minister is our MP. So, Margaret, are there any sort of requests you'd have of our Prime Minister?
Yes, and funnily enough, it's nice to be asked the question. We would like to see a proper strategy towards the bee farming community from this government.
And what would you include in that strategy?
We would include the importance of bee health. We would include a proper strategy about the number of beehives we really would like to see and a proper addressing of the pollination deficit in this country. That is what I mean, that we don't have enough bees to pollinate all the crops we would like to pollinate.
That's interesting. Does that mean that what happens to these crops? Do they just go to waste? And is that, obviously it sounds like they would have a big economic effect if we don't have enough pollinators.
No, they don't go to waste. What happens is they don't get the maximum yields out of them.
Okay, that's
and the bees are good for increased yields in crops, but also for the quality of crops. You get, particularly in fruit crops and things like that, you get better quality if they're pollinated properly.
Okay, so is that something that the Bee Farmers Association will help the government produce?
The Bee Farmers Association are experts in this. We are the only organisation in the UK that has a proper pollination officer, and we operate pollination contracts between farmers and bee farmers.
Okay, fantastic. So if you're listening, Mrs. May, please contact Margaret Ginman to try and put in place something that will help UK agriculture and our food production. Margaret, thank you for joining us. You're going to stay on the line and we're going to listen now to Ged Marshall is going to be calling in very, very shortly. And he's going to be talking about...
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for joining us. It's been great to have you on the show. But not that you're going to be listening in and contributing. So Ged's going to be talking about... he's going to be talking about the big business and also small businesses. How do you actually make money out of bees? It's more involved than you realise. And we're going to play... We had actually Frank Sinatra, Fly Me to the Moon. Who was that dedication for?
Dedication for my daughters.
Okay, there you go. And now we're going to play Born to be Wild, which is one of actually Ged's dedications from Steppenwolf, and which you'll find out from Ged very shortly who that's for. So here goes, Steppenwolf, Born to be Wild. Born to be Wild by Steppenwolf. And joining us on the line, we've got Ged Marshall. Ged, that song was just for you. Who was that for?
To all bee farmers who are currently moving bees to the heather. They're all heading out on the highway with truckloads of bees.
Wow! So you've got truckloads in this weather on the way to the highway, and they're...
So it'll be overnight they'll move them, or late in the evening or early morning when the bees are all in the hives.
Okay, great. Ged, let me introduce you now. Ged, you started beekeeping when you were 15, spending a summer working for a commercial operator in France who had 3,000 hives. You got your first hives in the early 80s, went full-time in 89, starting British honey production, and now that company is turning over a substantial turnover, about £500,000. So a reasonable size, but not a massive one. But your experience goes even further. You served on the Bee Farmers Association Committee for 12 years. You've been on the Honey Working Party Committee in Brussels and were Vice Chairman of the group representing all European beekeepers in meetings of the EU Commission. You've also served on the Bee Health Advisory Panel run by the Government's Ministry of Agriculture and is currently a member of the Healthy Bees Plan set up by FERA, Food and Environmental Research Agency. That's quite an experience. Tell me about...
I also keep bees as well.
Of course, in addition to your British honey production activities.
Yeah.
So you're very much, if anybody knows about bees and about the economics of bees, I'm happy to say we've got you on the show to talk about it. So tell us about how you got involved in beekeeping and why.
It was really by default. I'd spent those summers in France working on a bee farm, really just to get away from home as a kid and to do something different. But got sucked into it. Later on, I'd sort of studied agriculture, wanted to do something out in the countryside, and bee farming was one of the relatively easy ways of getting into a form of farming without masses of money or land.
Okay, and you obviously enjoyed it.
Oh yes, yep, it's great. You're by yourself, you've got no one telling you what to do, and you can just get on with it.
And that passion, have you continued that passion from when you first started?
Well, when I very first started, it was really just a means of getting away from home. It wasn't really a great interest in beekeeping or anything like that. But those early years did sink in, and I did actually, in hindsight, enjoy them, and did learn a lot, despite the fact that I was a teenager with my mind elsewhere and not paying full attention to the beekeeping at the time.
Okay, so it crept up on you, but now it's a good success. So let's talk about the products and the byproducts and the economics of beekeeping. Is it just about honey?
No, obviously you've got the honey, but above and beyond that, you've got beeswax, which is a byproduct of the honey production, which you can obviously use for candles and things like that, which historically is why bees were kept. It was for the high-quality wax for the church candles. But nowadays, that's used in polishes, hand creams, various other cosmetics. You also, as a byproduct, you could say pollination is a byproduct. We, commercially, I think Margaret mentioned it earlier, we take bees down to Kent to pollinate the fruit in the orchards, as well as to other areas and other crops around the country to pollinate them for the farmers to increase their yield. And on top of that, you can produce bees for the hobby beekeepers. We actually produce queen bees for beekeepers to help improve the quality of their hives.
Okay, now we're going to look at the commercial activities, so Apine activities, and they seem to be broadly split into three tiers. The giant operators...
I'm sorry, Winston, I can't hear you very clearly.
Okay, thanks. We're going to look at Apine activities. Is that a little bit better?
Yes.
Excellent. Yes. So, by my analysis, beekeeping and the economics and the commerciality is split into sort of three aspects. One is the giant operators like Rouse, there are bee farmers like yourself, and there are hobby beekeepers like me. So Rouse is one of the UK's leading company with a turnover worldwide of 120 million. But interestingly, only 1 million of that is outside of the UK and the EU and the rest of the world. And they make pre-tax profit of around about 10%. And it's not too shabby at all. So what does Rouse actually do?
Primarily, they pack honey. The vast majority of it is obviously imported because we only produce about 5 to 10% of our domestic consumption, so a lot needs to be imported. And they are packing it mainly for the supermarkets and large multiples here in the UK. And I think they do some packing for companies in Europe as well.
So they're very much focused on the honey aspect of trading. What about bee farmers like yourself? What is a bee farmer?
I'm sorry, I'm losing you again, Wisdom.
So they're very much focused on the honey aspect of commercial activities. What do bee farmers do?
Bee farmers, they have a wide variety of things. Ourselves, we specialise in producing queen bees. Most of the bee farmers are primarily honey producers. A large portion of them are what I'd call producer retailers, where they actually pack and sell all their own production. We tend to sell all of the honey we produce in bulk, both to the likes of Rouse and other similar firms, but an awful lot of it goes to smaller scale bee farmers who've got a very good outlet but a full-time job and don't have the time or facility to actually produce any more honey. So we supplement their own production.
Now, Rouse were traders, so perhaps their profit margins are a little bit lower than other companies, so they're 10%. But for yourself, I hope you don't mind me saying this is public record, BHP, they have a profit margin around about 20%, which is considerably greater. Is there a difference between the different products from hives and the profit margin you can earn?
There are great differences all the way along the line. Part of our fortune is we have our fingers in many pies, and we tend to go for the ones that are working that year. For example, this year we are going to produce about half the amount of honey we did last year. So if we were based on bulk honey alone, we would really suffer.
So, Ged, this is Malcolm. I don't know if you can hear me okay on...
Yep.
Ged, why is this, and why do we find that if we go into the supermarket, you can spend £2 or £3 on a runny honey made by Sainsbury's or Tesco or whoever, or you can spend £8, £10, £12 on another type, maybe for medicine reasons, or what is the difference in prices from the consumer point of view?
To be perfectly honest, some of it's excellent marketing.
Yeah.
But equally, honey does vary in quality. All flowers smell differently. Part of that smell is generated by the nectar they produce, and obviously the nicer smelling flowers tend to produce the nicer flavoured nectar and therefore honey, and you pay more for a premium product.
Is it for medical reasons or something like that?
Again, you can get to the Manuka honeys, which have got great medicinal claims, which are proven, but what they don't actually mention is a lot of the other honeys also have similar medicinal properties, and for the same amount of money, you could buy an awful lot more other honey and end up with just as much good, but more honey.
Ah, so we're learning...
But no, Manuka is the only one with the proven quality, but they do market it extremely well.
So what do you market?
We sell our honey in bulk, and because we're reliable and produce a good quality product, people come back. We do very little marketing ourselves. I've spent £65 this year on an advertisement, and that's the only advertising I've done all year.
Sounds like a good business to be in. Now, Ged, we're all interested in bees, and we hear and see these great big, different campaigns going on the internet, sign this petition and that petition. Bees are dying, and rightly so that they are actually diminishing. And one of the great campaigns recently was in relation to neonicotinoids and whether a farmer should or shouldn't be allowed to use them. Now, you're critical of some of these campaign associations. Tell us why. What are they getting wrong?
They're not getting it wrong, but they're just not getting all the information, and some of it's misguided. From my own personal experience, and I'm speaking from my point of view alone, I have had bees on fields of neonicotinoid dressed crops and got some of the best honey yields ever, and the bees have gone into winter in fantastic condition. And I have never seen any signs of bee damage from bees actually foraging on neonicotinoid dressed crops, and I don't think there are any cases in the UK of any directly related bee mortality incidents. Whereas if you go back to the old sprays and insecticides that have been replaced by neonicotinoids, nearly everybody can come up with stories of bee mortality and damage. That is not a scientific evidence, but it does indicate that things are not as drastic as some people make out.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm going to come back later on in the show to what people can do in terms of conservation and campaigning. But one more question for you. The Right Honourable Theresa May is MP for Cookham, and where these studios are located. Okay, we seem to have lost Ged there, and we'll come back to him in just a moment. Anyway, what we're going to do now is play some music. I mean, I find that really interesting, Malcolm, just that things aren't quite what they seem.
Well, there's something that doesn't seem what you're playing.
In terms of the campaigning organisations, I've always thought, Greenpeace have got a spot on.
Oh gosh, I've learnt a lot there. I can't believe about the lack of marketing. You've got a bloody good product, and everyone, excuse my
pardon the language,
my B word there, or people are queuing for it. But it worries me that the markets, the supermarkets, are just pretending to going to one proven medicinal purpose type honey, when the others could be just as good. Should we pay £3 or £12 for the same amount of honey?
You actually pay about £40 for a pound of the
really?
honey. Anyway, we're going to have another song. This is Just Like the Fire. It's from Pink, and it's from the film Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Good choice.
There we go. That was Pink from the film Alice Through the Looking Glass. Great. Well, hopefully, Ged, are you still in line?
Yep.
Excellent. Ged, I just want to quickly cover the issue of the hobby beekeeping. Now, for me, just roughly, if you make your own hive yourself, you've got even an element of practical skill, and I really don't, but I still can. It costs you about £300 for a hive and the different bits of equipment that go with a hive. For a suit, £100. If you're going to be selling the honey, and you've got to buy little bits and pieces, maybe another £100. And for training courses, decent training courses, perhaps £100. So that's about £600 in total as an outlay for a single hive. Now, how much does in a good year, or even an average year, how much honey does a hive produce?
The nationally quoted average is about £30, 50 kilos. Commercial beekeepers, particularly in the south of England, hope to get about £100, 50 kilos of honey a year.
Okay. Now, certainly I've heard that figure of £100 for a hive. Now, even if you drop it down to, say, £50 and you can sell it at £5, that's still about £250. Is that about right? £200 to £500 a year?
It's about right. If you're selling it in bulk, it's nearer half that.
Okay, so if you're selling this commercial, so it's, as you say, with good marketing that you see on the different stalls.
If you've only got one or two hives, it'll be very easy to sell your entire production direct to the public at full retail price, so you'll get the £5 a pound price.
So within a year or two, you could probably get your money back. Is that about right?
If you've got good years, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to get about half the crop we got last year this year.
Okay, so it possibly not just from the enjoyment point of view and saving the planet point of view, it possibly makes sense to keep bees.
Yes, a lot of our bee farmer members are semi bee farmers in that they're actually got a full-time job or another part-time job, and the bee farming is actually just a supplementary income.
Okay.
But they earn money through their love and interest at the weekend.
Well, great. Well, Ged, I know that you're a busy man. It's peak season for you and for beekeeping, so I'd say thank you very much for joining us on Biz Buzz. It really is our aim. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was Ged Marshall from the Bee Farmers Association and from the chairman of British Honey Producers. We've got Margaret back on the line again. Margaret, can you hear me?
Hello, Wisdom. Yes, I can.
Excellent. So now we're going to talk about how people can get involved with beekeeping. Now, there are a number of ways, and I suppose, how can they get involved? Aside of actually having hives themselves, which we've quickly touched on the economics of, how else can people get involved with looking after bees?
Well, there are lots of ways, but you can find out about it first. And to be honest, one of the best places to find out about beekeeping is at the National Honey Show, which I believe you're going to speak to somebody from the National Honey Show in a moment, Wisdom. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. Bob Maurer, chairman of the National Honey Show, will be on very, very shortly, and also be offering 3 free tickets.
If you want to start up, you know better than to go along to the National Honey Show and see the wonderful produce that is there.
And what about if people want to get involved with helping bees? They don't want to have bees themselves, they just want to sort of help with perhaps plants. What would you recommend?
Well, I represent people who are making a living from bees, Wisdom. You there are moving towards how do you get involved as an amateur. There are lots of local amateur associations for bees, and people can probably find their local association by doing a Google search for the British Beekeepers Association, and looking up their local group to get involved.
Absolutely. And of course, locally there is the Slough, Windsor and Maidenhead beekeepers, the South Chilterns, High Wycombe, and of course the Chalfonts. And I understand that the BBKA, or the British Beekeeping Association, has great advice about the sort of plants you can actually put into your garden to attract bees and help maintain bees, and perhaps even your local hives.
That at the moment there is the National Pollination Strategy, and you can go onto the DEFRA website and look up the Bees Needs site, and that will give you some advice on the right plants to plant in your garden.
Okay. Margaret, thank you very much for joining us. So we're going to play another piece of music. This one is actually for Bob Maurer, who we will try and get on the line very shortly, and it's So What by Miles Davis. So, Margaret, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Wisdom. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Well, we don't often play jazz on Marlow FM, or not on Biz Buzz. How did you enjoy that, Malcolm?
Yeah, I went down to to Marlow for a jazz evening the other evening. A whole big band called The Rebellion, and their music was just staggering. It's like being in a hi-fi cinema. Wonderful. And
of course, that's a dedication. We're joined on the line now by Bob Maurer, who's the chairman, amongst many other things, of the National Honey Show. Bob, that was a dedication for you. Who was that for?
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, I'd like to dedicate that to my poor old wife, who's sitting in the car with a broken arm at the moment.
On a hot day like this, wow, she is suffering in that case. Well, thank you for joining us.
I'm struggling to hear you, actually.
Okay, thank you for joining us on Biz Buzz, Bob. So we've been looking at bees, and we've had Margaret Ginman talking about the economics in terms of the global economics, national economics. We've had Ged Marshall talk.
Sorry, are you able to boost your volume to me a little?
And that's about. And we've had Margaret. Is that better?
Yes, sorry.
Great. So we've had Ged talking about the business of beekeeping and the various products, and some of the big honey producers like Rouse, £120 million turnover, and the profitability, and how actually it's very valuable even for smaller beekeepers, not just on the enjoyment, but also from the commercial. So you're chairman of the National Honey Show, in addition to being the director of Beecraft magazine, and you've kept bees yourself for many years as an anti-anxiety sort of tool, is that right? Or anti-stress tool?
Well, that's how it started. And I'm afraid beekeeping is rather addictive, so it's become almost a way of life now.
Okay. Now, one of the ways people can find out more about beekeeping and get immersed into the incredible world of beekeeping is the National Honey Show. Now, I understand that's on its Sandown very shortly? It is, yes. It'll be our first year at Sandown Park.
It's going to be an exciting new venue for us, but we should say that this is really a historic show. This will be our 85th show.
85th.
And given that we've been going since 1923, so we've had a few little gaps for the war years, so it won't be long before we're coming up to our centenary. It's a special show, and the biggest of its kind in the world. Tell us more about the National Honey Show, which is on the 27th to the 29th of October at Sandown Park Racecourse in Esher. Tell us more. What can people expect of the show? Well, if you started at the 1923 show, you'd have seen 16 classes of honey, and there would have been 2 judges. This year, we have 250 plus classes covering obviously honey, but all the hive products, so candles, wax, mead, anything that's made from the products of the hive, and we'll probably get something like 2,000 entries to the show. 2,000 entries for the honey and the various other products? So sorry? There's 2,000 entries for different, showing off the class types of honey and the different classes of honey? Absolutely right, yes. And what about the science of it all? There's a lot happening at the National Honey Show for those who are just want to know delve a bit deeper? Yes, absolutely. We have much more than just the Honey Show. We have a marvellous series of lectures. We fly in the very best speakers from all over the world. This year we've got 2 outstanding American speakers. Susan Kobe from Washington State University. She's big on breeding queens and instrumental insemination. We've got a chap called David Tarpey, who's a professor of entomology at North Carolina State University. He's big on diseases, and he's going to talk to us about that. And several other top-line speakers. Those people will all have their lectures professionally videoed, and we publish those free to beekeepers on our National Honey Show website. So it's our way of contributing to worldwide beekeeping education, if you like.
So there's something there for absolutely everybody.
There will be, yes. There are workshops, over 30 workshops for people to get their hands on to things and make equipment, perhaps, make a skep, straw skeps for catching bees, do a bit of microscopy, and also there will be educational workshops for people who want to immerse themselves in the many beekeeping exams that there are out there, should you so wish. And to top that as well, we will have a fantastic trade show with just about everything that anybody would need to set themselves up.
Okay. Bob, in 30 seconds, can you set a question so that people can email in the studio at marlowfm.co.uk to win a pair of tickets, or 3 tickets, 3 tickets for pairs for the show? What questions do you have for people?
We've already talked about how long the show has been in existence. So what number will it be this year in 2016?
Brilliant. Bob, thank you very much for joining us on the line on Biz Buzz, and we're going to head up to news, and we look forward to seeing you at the National Honey Show at Sandown Park Racecourse, Esher, between the 27th to 29th of October. Thank you, Bob.
Yes, everybody is welcome. We look forward to seeing you all.
Excellent. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That was Clean Bandit, the song Tears featuring Louisa Johnson. So you're joining us here on Biz Buzz, and we've just had a real spotlight on honey and apiary stuff and anything to do with bees and the economics of bees. And Bob Maurer, chairman of the National Honey Show, asked the question, what number is the next National Honey Show at Sandown Park at Esher between the 27th and 29th of September? Answers at studio@marlowfm.co.uk, and 3 of you could win a pair of tickets to the National Honey Show. But that was very interesting. What's happening in the world of Brexit?
Absolutely. No, I'm still in my honeymoon. But
boom, boom.
Boom, boom. Buzz, buzz. No, it's a lot going on with Brexit, and I'm a little bit concerned about the strategy that's coming out. There's good and bad for business, and I've been trying to find out some advice for business and where we're going. As I said earlier, Buckinghamshire gets the least of any county in Britain for EU support, maybe because we have some very successful business in the Thames Valley in particular. But it will affect us, and what can we do about it? And it's interesting that the Prime Minister's gone off to Germany to talk to Merkel and perhaps talk about immigration, I suspect. But she's saying that we probably won't do anything about starting our exit from Europe until towards the end of the year at the earliest.
So we won't start a 2-year time clock ticking until the end of 2016?
At least.
Yeah, that makes sense. You need a bit of time to develop your strategy, begin those negotiations with various other trade partners.
Well, exactly, and this is what's quite right. This is what's going on. Obviously, the Commonwealth has sort of come forward, and Australia saying, "Hey, guys, we'd really like to do business with you," but they haven't mentioned that when they started with China, it took them almost 10 years to get into a trade agreement. In the old days, you have to go by boat to Australia if you wanted to emigrate, but now, things should be faster, but I'm not too sure. But if you look at who's saying what at the moment, for example, Liam Fox, the new International Trade Secretary, said he was already scoping about a dozen free-to-trade deals. He's told the Sunday Times on Sunday, and has reiterated this morning, Thursday, we've already had a number of countries saying we'd love to do a trade deal with the world's 5th biggest economy without having to deal with the other 27 members of the EU. Yeah, hang on a second. The EU had its strength, but yes, perhaps some restraints and some commodities. So perhaps we'll get some pretty good deals. In the meantime, we should be aware what's going on. The property market, there's still people shouting out that you're going to see about 30% reduction in London property prices. But what they haven't actually said, there's been a spike, unexpected perhaps, in interest from overseas buyers of up to 50% since the Brexit vote. And it's sent a lot of interest around the world. For example, the rather upmarket to London estate agents Weatherall said many potential buyers have been putting off their decision and waiting for the referendum result to see how the land lies. But now we have the result, and a large number of buyers are back asking about properties to purchase. So because of the pound plummeting and despite the markets, although they're stabilising too.
Do you think they're bargain hunters, or are they genuine people who actually just delayed the decision?
Both. Yeah, I've tried to analyse that. It's a very good question. I've tried to analyse that, and I think it's a bit of both. I think they also realise that the autumn budget, which is going to be our next budget, we're not going to have one before the autumn. We've got the summer recess to go and cool down a bit. Increasing taxes is not the way to support the economy, maintain confidence from consumers, and make sure that we continue to grow the economy in future. Nor is it likely that a massive round of new spending cuts is going to help the economy at the moment. In fact, with falling business and consumer confidence, worries over delays or even the cancellation of private investment and a construction industry that looks to be slowing down, many will see an increase in government investment. The former business secretary, Mr. Javid, said that we need an extra £100 billion of infrastructure over the next 5 years. So the autumn budget, I think, will be sort of changing the parameters and boundaries of what was said only just a year ago, where we're talking about getting even on our spend.
Absolutely, trying to at least break even, if not actually make a big dent in the £1.5 trillion borrowings that the UK has as a government, let alone as individuals. That's interesting. So we're saying that taxes will probably drop. And certainly they talked about dropping corporation tax already.
Yeah,
so we're
12%,
saying that
15%.
Sadly for the landlords, there's no real respite for the ridiculous taxes. That's my personal comment, not a Marlow FM comment. That the previous Chancellor introduced to hammer our poor old landlords. So no respite there, but still dropping corporation tax. We're talking about interest rates further dropping in many countries around the world. It's going to be sub-zero. All of this to try and encourage investment and perhaps a delay. I think last time we covered a story that many people are going to invest, but they're just delaying, just as they did with the property market. So there's going to be a boom, but the question is whether it's just a short-term blip in a long-term sea of stagnation. I think, as Andrew put it to me a little early on in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And we looked, for example, at our last show, and we sat here with that with Dermot at his last show. Basically, companies like General Electric, who've invested £80 billion in British industries in the last few years, have been confident all the way through. And I think if you ask them today the same question, they'll be fine. But there's a lot of things going on which we should be aware of as employers. And one of them is flexible working and skills, which are not directly Brexit. And perhaps we could cover that in a moment.
Okay. So it sounds as if it's not entirely negative. It's actually some interesting things developing, but the situation is changing and unfolding. So don't panic. Nicht paniken.
Yeah, whatever that last two words was. Absolutely.
That was German for don't panic.
Right.
I guess
suitable.
I guess Theresa May is possibly saying that to Angela Merkel. So to keep with the theme of honey, I'm going to have a Taste of Honey by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. It's quite a short song, so see you in a couple of minutes. Well, that was a song we don't often hear on the radio, Herb Alpert and a Taste of Honey. So Herb Alpert and a Tijuana Brass. And of course, we've been looking at various things, honey or apine, during the show. Malcolm, what's next?
Well, I promised to try and give some advice from the complications coming out of Brexit and what employers should be wary of. And it's one or two legal requirements which I think have been neglected, and one of them is flexible working. A couple of years ago, the government introduced flexible working legislation that gave all employers the legal right to ask for flexibility in where and when they work. I don't know whether that's a European directive or our own initiative, but anyway, that's history. This in theory should have brought about a change in the workforce, allowing workers to balance their professional and personal lives better while improving productivity, and would have answered our skill shortage to some degree. But most industries still ignore or resist their employers' needs for more flexibility, which leads to all sorts of troubles. With competition for skilled staff increasing, and of course digital technologies, as you well know, constantly creating opportunities for more favourable working patterns, there's all sorts of... It's a different type of community. Let's cut this one short, because what interests me out of this is that there's two types of people, and I suspect you're the new type, the millennium.
Millennial.
Millennium, I'm going to call you.
Okay.
That one has been... No, you're a millennial, absolutely
Millennial.
right.
Well, I think I'm a bit too old to be a millennial, but my kids are millennials.
I don't think so. But anyway, that particular breed of person is working in a very, very different way from, let's say, the baby boomers. And they're earning less money. Why is that? Is it the type of technology that we're using? The new generation carries with it new ways of thinking and demands that are very different to the baby boomers and those after the baby boomers. For example, research in the United States, which I take sometimes with a little pinch of salt, indicates 81% of millennials believe they should be allowed to make their own hours at work, compared with 69% of baby boomers. So this sort of skill set, this mindset is changing. And the UK is actually facing a skills shortage, with about a quarter of vacancies in last year put down to the country's widening skills gap. I know we got very good, sorry, those bees, very good employment at the moment, and the figures are very, very encouraging. But it's some of the skills that we're looking for. For example, look at some of the companies that are coming on, the sharing and on-demand economies. They're driving a rise in companies such as Uber, TaskRabbit and Airbnb, and these offer flexibility of self-employment. Sainsbury's, we heard on the news at 3 o'clock, and Amazon, we heard the news this morning. There's obviously competition going there. Advertising with drivers for £12, £15 an hour to drive their own vehicles, presumably get paid for that, to try and get a delivery time of half an hour of making an order. That is absolutely amazing. Do people need that? So staff turnover, keeping these skills in the right place, is a huge issue for business owners. It costs them about £30,000 per employee, a cost that many companies might struggle to justify in the recent vote to leave the United Europeans. And I promise the millennials,
that's
I'll
it.
get that right in a minute.
Okay.
The Resolution Foundation found that under 35s earned £8,000 less in their 20s than Generation X workers, those two categories we talked about before.
So I've got a couple of questions here, Malcolm.
Yeah, sure.
So the first one is, for millennials out there, work works in a certain pattern. For example, if you're in a shop, you have to be there at a certain time. It's difficult for employers to manage those hours. So should it be the bosses changing, or should it be our millennials saying, well, guys, come on, get with it. This is the way it works in business, so you need to change your pattern. What do you think?
Yeah, I think
a bit of both.
A bit of both. I know that if you look at the nursing home industry, or where you're using part-time staff hugely, let's take a typical nursing home of, say, 30 residents. The staff for that is probably about 50, 55 people, because of the part-time nature and balancing the books on that. And the management, though, has to be spread between specialist night nursing staff. It has to be good admin. It has to be a good front people who could understand what relatives are looking for. It's very difficult dividing management up when you've got flexible working. It depends on the sort of business you're in. If you're in a shop, you have one general manager and 3 store managers perhaps, and between them they cover the sort of 7 days a week working that they have to do now.
Okay, well, let's have another piece of music, and actually I'll let you introduce this one.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually for my good friend Mike, who lives very close to Beaconsfield. He's asked for Always on My Mind by Elvis, and he's dedicating this to Sue of Bourne End.
Wow, Elvis, they're fading out gently with Always on My Mind, and that was for Malcolm's friend.
Yeah, that's for Mike, and Mike is, I hope he's heard that, all his way out. I mean, our broadcast is quite a wide area, isn't it? It goes well beyond
And of course,
Marlow.
people listening on the internet from places as far afield as Australia and Africa.
Yes, I've had a number of calls in the last 10 minutes from that era.
Okay, excellent. There's so many places you can go to on that comment, but they're all wrong, aren't they?
They are. Yes.
Well, that was a seat of the pants sort of show with a few technical problems at the start. But you know what? I've learned an awful lot during that show. Well, how about you?
Yeah, I've learned an awful lot. And what I constantly change every day is that listening to businesses who start up, who have a very small margin, very honest people who are selling their products and may not have time for marketing. So they rely on goodwill and relationships and so on. And there's so many businesses in Britain who are coming out and working. And, you know, yes, they're affected by Brexit in different ways, but they're determined. This is the spirit of Britain. We're going to do it.
Absolutely. I believe in the people of this nation. I really do. I think we're made of sterner stuff than the press would have you believe. Now, I'm actually fascinated by some of the stories, some of the comments from the bee farmers, from Ged Marshall, for example. I'm one of these guys who said, yes, okay, I'm going to sign up the petition against neonicotinoids. And here's an actual farmer saying, no, don't do that because that's not quite right. And perhaps we're being misled even by some of these environmental organisations, which is... Okay, great. Caveat emptor. We've all got to do our research before signing these petitions, but that really came as a bit of a shock to me. And the other story in relation to the government, actually, you do need to produce a real plan for these things, and there are people who will help you produce those plans. And of course, finally, I didn't realise there's such a big gap in the honey market where we could have a tenfold increase or fivefold increase in the number of beekeepers, and that includes you out there listening, and make some money, help the economy generally, help the environment, and have lots of fun.
Are you looking after your bees tonight?
No, they don't need much input. They are livestock, but I think they've managed without man for tens of thousands of years. I think just a week or so's checking it is absolutely fine. They don't need my input, but I do watch them. They're quite phenomenal.
I downloaded a brochure on the internet a short time before the programme, and it said 20 ways you can actually help the bees. And you actually leave them water and perhaps some hollow canes where they can make nests and go in, and little things like that, a way to sort of nourish them. And I had lavender, lots of lavender, leading up to the door of my last house, and I had to brush past it this time of year, and there were hundreds and hundreds of bees. In 10 years, I wasn't stung once.
That is true. I haven't been stung once. I say that out tongue in cheek, touch wood, cross fingers, in all my time beekeeping. They're delightful creatures. Well, we've come to the end of the show, and that was a really fly by the seat of your pants. We're going to be broadcasting next on the 4th of August when Malcolm, I understand that you'll be guiding the ship through the troubled waters of Radioland.
I would try. I'll be talking to some local businesses about how they're actually winning awards overseas and how they do it, and advice for other business people in the Marlow area.
Okay, so thank you very much for listening to Biz Buzz today on the 21st of July, and I'm going to play us all out with "Can't Stop the Feeling" by Justin Timberlake.